Hello and welcome to Voices of Parenting podcast. I am so glad you're here. My name is Mussy Diskin. I am an advanced nurtured heart approach trainer. I am a parenting coach. I am also an inner wealth coach, which means that I help people rediscover and connect to the people that they truly were all along, but may have gotten forgotten along the way. So to find out more about me and what I offer, you can check out mussydiskin.com. I would love to connect and I would love to hear your feedback. Reach out to energizinghearts@gmail.com. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today we have David Burke here, who I am meeting with you for the first time. So we are all getting to know each other together.
Yeah.
So David, if I could ask you to introduce yourself, because I can't introduce you, tell us who you are and what Nurtured Heart is to you, and we'll just see where this rolls.
My name is David Burke, and my wife and I started Serenity Mesa Youth Recovery Center back in 2015 is when we first opened, and it's a youth treatment center for youth and adolescents and who struggle with substance abuse. So it could be meth, it could be fentanyl, it could be any kind of drugs. Most of them are in the system. Most of them have been in and out of jail or homelessness or a lot of trauma. And for a long time, we weren't sure exactly how to improve our processes. And then we came across Nurtured Heart back in, I believe it was 2017, 18. We went up to Minnesota, got trained, and kind of changed how our course and how we are with the kids. And Nurtured Heart has really kind of just been the core of our systems, the core of our beliefs here, building inner wealth and growing kids to be their best, and believing in themselves. And it's been transformational for us for here as a facility for sure.
So powerful and brave to take Nurtured Heart to that level of, I think there's you're not the parents per se, but just there's a level of desperation and panic when it comes to kids who are so close to danger. And we want to save them and we want to fix it. And having that courage to stick with, I'm going to find this person and I'm going to see them and I'm going to let them see themselves. And that's what I'm going to do is like huge. I feel like you have so much experience to just share. So I just kind of want you to talk, like if you have stories of transformation or some of the bumps maybe you faced and how you've overcome them or whatever, like what is Nurtured Heart doing for you?
I'll kind of start from the beginning when we did it. I remember talking to Howie in Minnesota, and I wasn't sure about it because it's not a way that I'm used to speaking. It's a different way of speaking. It's a different way of learning. And I'd go in and I'd hear all the advanced trainers back at that time, and they're saying all these words, and I was like, that's not me. And I still remember the conversation I had with Howie. He's like, it doesn't need to be you. You can be your authentic self. Because if I try to be something I'm not, people are going to know that I'm trying to be something I'm not. And so I've learned over the course, and as an advanced trainer in Nurtured Heart now, I have been one for the last 5-6 years. What I train our staff is be authentically you and use the words that come naturally for you. And, we're dealing with kids that are in the system. They can be rough. They can, they're not used to, just real pretty fluffy words and I wasn't used to saying them, and so like I still use that, but I've had to learn how to grow into that, and Nurtured Heart allows you to do that. It allows you to be your authentic self, where you don't have to know all the right things and exact ways and whatnot.
Could you give me a role play of Mr.
Yeah.
Rough Kiddo walks in today, first day, and is like all sure that they're going to be your enemy and that you guys are on two sides of a war, and you're not going to see him, he's not going to see you. Like, how does that first?
Sarah's. So I use Sarah's on a daily basis out here, building inner wealth. What I see, what I notice, what I hear, what I appreciate about that individual, what that reveals to me. We have a client, and usually my go-to is, I see you walking through this door, and that takes such courage and bravery, and and coming into a new system and a new facility. You just came from a facility that was completely locked down. Now you're getting some more freedom. And what I appreciate about that is that you showed up and you're here. That reveals to me that you have really, strength and you're courageous. And I'll break up Sarah's a lot. And what I mean by that is, for those who aren't familiar with Sarah's, it's what I see, what I appreciate, what that reveals, and I accuse you of being a great, the greatness of, and then breathing that in. And so like I'll just I'm walking through the house, especially when a new client walks in. I appreciate the fact that I just saw you help your peer, just noticing all the little things. I was saying it's like build inner wealth all day, every day. And it's looking for the greatness in a kid, even when things aren't going well. And sometimes that's really, really difficult to do. Um, we'll get a kid who will be cussing and yelling and hollering and screaming and calling you every name in the book. And it's not because they don't like you, it's because they aren't used to structure and they aren't used to accountability, which is the other thing I really love about Nurtured Heart is there is accountability. There is structure. There was a client who came in and he was used to just getting his way by screaming and hollering and yelling and kind of going after us and whatnot. And when you don't give it energy, which is stand one, and you set your clarities around when you are going to give that individual energy, then they stop and they know, okay, if your stand one is strong and your clarity is strong, then your stand two has to come in. And like as soon as they stop hollering, screaming, and cussing and yelling, I don't take it personal. I just turn around and say, I appreciate the fact that you were able to lower your voice and we're able to have this conversation right now. That shows really good self-control on your part. And, you can just see them kind of come down a little bit instead of where prior to Nurture Heart. And what I see a lot of folks do is like, you're this and this and that. And they're cussing and hollering and yelling at you and you take it personal. And then you start getting mad at them. And then it turns into a power struggle. And then you start getting angry at each other and then no one wins. When I learned that all three stands have to be in concert with each other. Your stand one has to be strong. Your stand two has to be strong. Your stand three has to be strong. Nurture Heart doesn't work unless you're using all three stands together the whole day, all day long. And it's hard to remember that because we're human. And sometimes you can get told things or you can be afraid and things happen in your life where it's like, I don't know what to do with this. And that's when you have to look at that building inner wealth in yourself and breathing in your strengths and your greatness and looking at saying, okay, I know coming into work that I could face some challenges. And I talked to myself and said, what challenges can I face? I can get a kid who's upset. I can get a kid who's aggressive. I can get a kid who might be aggressive physically towards me or towards facilities or towards other kids. Okay, I know this coming in at times. And so how do I prepare myself for going into that and handling those situations? So I Sarah myself. I see myself. I hear myself. I notice myself. I appreciate this. That reveals to me. And I build that inner wealth in myself. And I give myself a greatness every day before I walk through that door. And then I walk through that door no matter what's going on. And I try to build inner wealth from the moment I walk in. And because I do feel that kids feed off of our energy too. And if I'm throwing out negative energy, then it's going to be negative energy that's going to be in the house. And so it's all about building inner wealth. It's about inner wealth breathing and building inner wealth and grounding ourselves to handle any situation that comes up and believing that you can handle any situation that comes up. And when you can't, it's like, hey, I'm getting upset, man. I need to take a minute for myself and I need to reset myself. And I think that's a powerful tool too. When you reset yourself in front of them, that's demonstrating like this is how we manage anger. This is how we manage when we're upset. I need to reset myself and give me a few minutes and I'll come back and I'll talk to you because I'm kind of mad right now.
I love that. I'm going to play devil's advocate with you here with a question that I get a lot because I feel like you're such a good person for this. Kids, and you probably know this more than ever, even the Sarah you gave, the kid who just walked in, right? And I'm that kid and I've never got a positive recognition in my life and I've never had adults who really saw me. And I just want to punch you in the face. I'm courageous for coming here. Like blank, 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 blank. Like, I don't want to be here, and don't start telling me that I want to be here and you don't know me and like get out of my face. And I just want to punch you. So those kids that really resist those recognitions and really are like, shut up. I don't want to hear this. Like, get out of my face, we know that deep inside there's a kiddo who really, really wants to be seen, but just doesn't believe that they can be and doesn't want to trust and be taken advantage of that trust. That's way too vulnerable. So walk me through like where you might go with that.
It's all the time. And you'll get a kid, it's like, that's dumb. They'll tell me that's dumb. Why would you say something like that? And, I don't want you to talk to me that way. And I'll say, well, I appreciate you letting me know. And so even in that little moment when I just said, I appreciate you letting me know that you feel uncomfortable being talked to that way, that's building inner wealth in them. That's me recognizing the fact that that they're uncomfortable with it, and so that little piece is just like, well, I appreciate you letting me know that you don't like being talked like that. And I don't give it any more energy. And and then I move on. Well, let's go to your room and let's figure out, where you're going to sleep and what you're going to do. And we got to go over like the kitchen and we're going to go over all these things. And I start going through them with all the different things as they walk through the door. Cause it's a lot, they have to go through a lot. And as I'm walking them through the rooms, as I'm walking them through the facility, ask them, do you have any questions? And then as they're asking questions, I just use little bits and pieces of building inner wealth. That's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. And and then you just kind of go into that. That was a very thoughtful question. That was a very like mindful question that you just did right there. And so you're doing it without them knowing that you're doing it, if that makes sense. And then you just continue to do that every interaction, all the time that you see them, and then it can grow. Does it happen all the time? No. I wish it did. And I think the hardest part is, when you get a kid who's just really mad, and most of the time for us here, they're happier being here than they are being in detention centers or being on the streets. They're just not used to the words that are coming out of our mouths. They're not used to someone telling them, they're used to people saying, well, good job. But good job is that empty compliment, right? It's, I saw you do this. This is why I believe you did a good job in explaining why. And what I've learned, especially with the teenagers and stuff that we serve, is to keep it simple. I don't need to go into a 12-minute Sarah. I can do a 30-second, 20-second Sarah. I appreciate, you revealed to me you're the greatness of this. And I won't even say like you're the greatness of, I'll be like, that just took a lot of, man, you're a courageous person, or you're a strong person, or you're an empathetic person, or you're a person of integrity and all that kind of stuff. And I use those words. And I think the simpler you keep it at the beginning, the better it's going to be, and the more it will land for um, the kids that we serve.
Yeah, I love that. Let's take a different hat for a second. Talk to me about staff. I'm understanding that you founded this place, and I'm assuming you're not the only staff. How, as a director, like for those, I know I have some listeners who are directors, how have you sort of nurtured heart being everybody's language? How have you managed that?
It's actually harder with the staff than it is with our clients, um, because a lot of people won't buy into it. And it's hard to build a culture that's surrounded by nurtured heart because all it takes is one person to break that chain, right? You get one person who snaps back at somebody or concentrates on the negative, and then the work that you've put in, it doesn't seem real to that kid. And so it's just the way we try to do for us is it's got to come from me down. My wife and I, we try to exemplify nurtured heart with our clients, with our guests, with the kids who come, and live it, breathe it, own it, and understand it. And when we make a mistake with it, which we do, being able to admit that, being vulnerable enough to like say, hey, I overreacted there and I shouldn't have, and whatever it might be, and being able to reset yourself and go on. And we do. So what we're doing here, and I just started this last year, is we do our initial 6-hour training, and then I'm doing weekly trainings with Nurtured Heart with all of the staff. And it's a requirement for everybody to go, because it's great to get the initial 6-week training. And what I found for us is like that initial 6 weeks training, if you look at like just the stats, people get trained and you remember, what is the stat, is like 20% of the 6-hour training. So what we're doing is we're implementing 1-hour weekly trainings where I just break it down even smaller. So next week we're starting the new cycle, and we'll start at the very beginning of the 6-hour training. And then every week we just go down and we demonstrate, we bring up examples that have happened in the houses where the kids are at or that have come up in work. Okay, how did we build inner wealth in this situation? What does stand 1 look like in this situation? What does stand 2 look like in these situations? So we use real life examples in the training of stuff that we've had happened during the week, not getting upset or angry with anybody. It's just like, how do we grow in this situation so that we can do a different approach next time? And using the stands, using stand 1, using stand 2, using stand 3, building inner wealth, and all of the different aspects of each individual. I break it down into detail. So I'll do one whole week on the video game theory, and then I'll do one whole week on how do we notch up our recognitions, doing active recognitions and proactive recognitions. And each week we'll do like, okay, this week we're doing active recognitions, next week we're doing proactive recognitions, and we kind of just break it down. And I actually feel that's really made a difference in staff buying into and believing in the approach, because it's more prevalent. It's not just an initial training, which is what we did for a long time, and it just wasn't landing. And so I feel with this, it's landing a lot more with everybody, and they're trying more, they're asking more questions, and you can see it in the interactions with the clients. And I finally seen like this really big shift where my goal is to be a nurtured heart facility where people walk in the door and like, man, this place is different. And this place is passionate, empathetic, caring, loving, kind, and structured. And they hold the kids accountable. And because clarity is just as important as anything, building all 3 stands and integrating it into our lifeblood as staff and as a facility, so everybody knows it, feels it, and sees it.
This is so beautiful. I kind of want to come visit you and just be in there in that space. And I love that the space for the practical application and sort of like the struggle and conversation that happens in those 1 hours, I'm imagining, because it's so important. I feel like in the tiny little video clips, or like the 5 minutes I spent with this nurtured heart person or that nurtured heart person, I gained so much more than just like the information, because watching it live is like, and that's why the CTI is so powerful, I feel like, because we're experiencing it live. It's about the experience, and how can you describe an experience? It's the second hand versus the first hand. Like really experiencing it is like, oh, okay. I love that. And I think that's practical also for any director who's listening to this. Okay, we're getting close to the ending of this, but I do want to ask you one more like sort of role play. Maybe there's a story that sticks out to me. Maybe you want to just make something up, but like there's something going on. You're talking about this clarity piece and holding the kids accountable. Okay, so something just happened, or something is happening that is red line, black, absolute not. They are out, and it needs to be addressed, right? Can you like walk me through the dance of the 3 stands as you're like walking into a room or calling kids out, or like what would that look like? That something's going on, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, we had it's one of my favorite examples I use when I'm doing the trainings with our staff or whoever I'm doing trainings for. Is we had a young man whose visit days, and Sundays are days when we have people who come in to visit, and he was really looking forward to his parents coming. And we always have behaviors on Sundays, so we have extra staff, we have extra people there, because sometimes people don't show up. And in this particular instance, this kid was waiting. He had just gotten off the phone with his parents, and he was waiting for them to come. And the one day that they get to come, they didn't show up. It was heartbreaking, and it always is heartbreaking when that happens. And but that's the trauma in some of these kids' lives. And in this particular case, the parents just didn't really ever show up. So we always knew that there was a plan in place. So we planned ahead of time, knowing that there was going to be a chance that the parents were going to be there. And so we sit down with them before. And what I do is I built a Sarah with them before. And so, like I said, what does it look like for you, if your parents don't show up? And I started asking them questions and doing that kind of stuff, because it happened week after week after week after week, and we're seeing these behaviors. And so we set up a plan, and what do you need from us in advance? And so and I ask a lot of questions. I don't give a lot of answers. I will say this: I'm one of the world's best lecturers, I feel. I am Charlie Brown's teacher to the core. And that's where I sometimes fall down, right? But what I've learned to do is ask more questions, listen more, speak less. And so he got really upset, and he was really mad, and he started, endangering himself by punching the doors, and he was throwing things, and he was really upset and mad and angry. And I was just kind of standing around, and I said, I need you to stop throwing things so that I can hear what you're saying and understand what you're doing. I said, I appreciate the fact that you're not throwing things at me. That reveals to me that you have self-control. and you're angry. I see you're angry by, the veins popping out in your head, and your face is turning red, and you're angry. And then it's just start asking him questions, and he sat there and he said, "Well, I would never hit you." I said, "Well, that's awesome. I appreciate the fact that you would never hit me." And he just slowly would come down, but I just keep asking him questions, and I would just wait. And then I'd say, "What do you need from me?" And he'd tell me to f off, but I wouldn't take it personal. I would just say, "Okay," and you just sit there and you wait and you take time. And I think that's a lot of times we don't where we don't finish, we fail, basically, is we don't give things time to work out. I want you to stop this behavior right now, or A, B, C, and D. It's like, okay, let's give it time. And he was eventually, just by using Sarah's and building inner wealth and showing him what he's in Nurtured Heart, it talks about how great would it not be if this was not happening. And so pointing out all the miracles and the molecules, because there was nothing great about what was going on in that moment, and still trying to build inner wealth in him. And it's you could see him come down, and then he wanted to leave, and he wanted to call his probation officer, and he wanted to do all this kind of stuff, and he was able just to come down. And I knew he was just mad. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about the staff. It wasn't about the other clients. It was the fact that his parents didn't show up. And so having him talk about that, and then he remembered, well, I remembered we talked and you said that I could go for a walk. I said, absolutely, let's go for a walk. And he goes, do you have to come with me? I said, I don't have to come with you, but I have to have you within line of sight, like we talked about earlier. And he's like, that's fine. And so he went out and he walked around the property and did that kind of stuff. And then he came back and he said, can I go to your office? I said, sure. And so we come to my office, and and then he just broke down. He said, I don't know what to do. And I don't know what to do because no one shows up for me on my visit days. And it's hard to hear and it's heartbreaking, but sometimes it's the reality. Some of the kids that come here come from absolutely broken homes and a lot of trauma. And it's just working with him and trying to help him work through what that's going to look like, because I can't make anybody come see him. It's like, what do we do different on these Sundays? So we came up with a game plan, and he came up with a lot of things that he wanted to do himself. He said, I'm just not going to ask him to come anymore. And I said, well, that's very strong. That's a strong way for you to handle that situation. And it worked out and he was okay, but it's just give it time. Don't be in a rush. Ask questions, listen more, be empathetic, and listen to hear and don't listen to respond, I think is a lot of stuff that I really try to practice here with the kids. www.serenitymesa.com, and our office number is 505-877-3644. We have a detox, we have a 90-day treatment program, and we have a housing program. So we kind of encompass the whole structure for sobriety. And if anybody has anybody or knows anybody or anybody's in trouble, let us know, reach out.
Hey, wait, don't go yet. Take a minute to find the beautiful quality that you have, that you appreciate about yourself.